Welcome to my channel, Becoming Bev. In today's video, I'm going to highlight the second half of my birthday trip. I'm also going to give you an update on Jordan, the guy who's riding the bicycle across the United States from my last video. Also, I want to mention that over Labor Day weekend, I'm going to a truck-in or a van rally in Rensselaer, Indiana. And if you want some information about that, you can find information on the website www.floridavancouncil.com. Hope to see you there. For the second half of my birthday trip, I woke up and did a drive to Scotts Bluff. That rooster's cracking me up. All right. I woke up early and drove to Scotts Bluff in western Nebraska to do an early morning hike. The temperatures on this trip have been pretty high, so it's been important to get my hikes in early in the mornings and late in the evenings. This hike is only a 1.6 mile hike, and it's pretty cool with all these hairpin turns on the hiking trail. And at one point you go through a cave, and just the breeze blowing through that cave felt wonderful. Like I could have stood there for a half an hour just enjoying the view from both sides. Chimney Rock was my next stop. It wasn't all that interesting. There wasn't even a hiking trail up to it that I could find, so I just stopped at the visitor center, snapped a few photos, and went on my way. I backtracked north and went to Toadstool Geological Park. It was pretty fascinating there. They had a campsite basically at the trailhead, and it was about 6 camp spots. They didn't have electrical hookups, but they did have bathrooms, and those are on a first come, first served basis. I did a short sunset hike. I got up early the next morning for a 5-mile hike. This place was insane. The topography looked like you were on a moonscape or something. There were areas of grasslands and badlands, and several areas with eroded claystone formations that looked like mushrooms or toadstools, which is how it got its name. Some of my girlfriends have insinuated they look like something else, but I'm not going there. I was thankful that the trails at Toadstool were well marked because it could be really easy to get turned around and lose your bearings. One of the things that you might want to take note about going there, you have to drive on 14 miles of gravel road. So after 28 miles of Jennifer driving on these gravel roads, she was pretty dusty and dirty when we got back to town and desperately needed a bath. I had stopped off at the auto parts store earlier to pick up some cleaning supplies, and I asked the guy behind the counter if there was a particular air freshener that he recommended. I had to laugh whenever he recommended the googly-eyed unicorn air freshener, and I thought, that's perfect. Now in some of my driving videos, you'll be seeing my latest addition, the googly-eyed unicorn. I looked at the map and decided to take Highway 12, which is called the Outlaw Scenic Trail. It's in Nebraska, but it runs just 10 miles south of South Dakota. Just a few miles into the route, I saw a sign that said Smith Falls, so I thought I should go check that out. I pulled in, there was a great little state park campground there, and walked over to the falls. I can't tell you how beautiful that was and how refreshing it felt to just be in that waterfall. While I was at the campground, I noticed a few signs advertising rafting companies or float trips on the Niobrara River. So I thought that would be fun. I went to the first outfitter that I came to, and they weren't sure if they had an opening or not, but they seemed to work it out. So I spent the day on the Niobrara River. It reminded me of going on float trips in the past on the Guadalupe River in Texas. So the day that I went, the river had about 4,500 people on it, and just massive amounts of people floating down the river in these huge groups. And I had never seen tubes like they had. Some of them even had couch backs on them. It was great people watching, and I'm glad that I went to the falls when I did. Apparently it's a very popular stop on the float trip, so there were hordes of people at Smith Falls during the day. So I was very thankful that I got there early in the morning and late in the evening when no one was around. Took off to North Dakota so I could check off my 49th state. I was in Fargo, North Dakota. That was the least amount of traveling I could do and still be in North Dakota. And that's where I met Jordan at the campground. So that turned out to be a great stop. Let me just give you a little update about Jordan. I talked to him the day after the last video on my channel posted, and he sent me a photograph of himself with his arm all bloody and a picture of his bicycle. Instead of the tire being straight, the tire was bent like this angle. So of course I had to call him and get more details. That seems to be the thing with me and Jordan. Every time I talk to him, I'm left with like 1,000 more questions. So I had questions about how far out of town were you, and did you have to carry your bicycle back? How did you get out of this predicament? Basically, he shared with me that he'd been riding his bicycle on a bike trail that had some cows on it. So he rode up to them thinking the cows would just get out of the way. Well, they didn't. So he was slowly riding through the cows when one of them kicked him and knocked him off of the bicycle, bent the bicycle tire, and gashed in his arm. So I asked him what he did. So he told me that he had spent the night before at a place that he had found on the app called Warm Showers, where people open their homes up to the cyclist. And he'd spent the night before with someone from that app. So he just called them. He was about an hour out on his bike, but only 15 minutes by car. So his host from the previous night came back and got him, took him to a bicycle shop, and 2 hours later, he was back on the road. My next stop was my 50th state, Wisconsin. I have a girlfriend, Diane, that you may remember from one of my previous videos when she came to the campground and camped out. She was a gracious host. We walked around the state capitol building, which was quite impressive. Then we did a pretty good hike out to Picnic Point, which is well worth the walk. You end up with this beautiful panoramic view of Madison, Wisconsin. Now, the other thing that Diane did is she gave her friend Jim a call, who has a boat, and he took us out boating for the day. Jim has this crazy wake boat. I had never been on one, and maybe I didn't even know they existed. The boat takes in about 3,500 pounds of water, and it makes it have a bigger wake so you can actually surf behind the boat. And he invited two friends, Francesca and Ray, who were expert wakeboarders, and it was fascinating to watch these two. They even did a tandem surf. I can't even imagine how hard that is. van life meetup in Tigerton, Wisconsin. When I looked on the map, it was only about a 3-hour drive north of Madison, so I decided that that would be fun. I went to the Tigerton OHV RV Park, which is a 700-acre campground where you can also take your off-road vehicles. And that part of it didn't interfere with our camping spots at all because it's a completely separate part of the RV park. There were about 15 van lifers that showed up for the meetup, and I got to meet some really fascinating people. I want to thank Megan for hosting the event. I'm here with Megan today. Megan organized a van life meetup here in Tigerton, Wisconsin. So I just wanted you to meet her. Megan, tell me, what was your inspiration behind creating this meetup?
When I first purchased my vintage van, I realized that there wasn't much here in Wisconsin for people to do, nor is it a state that a lot of people want to travel to. So I'm like, we need to start bringing people here. And so I'm like, I'm just gonna do it. I got this campground management job in October, and I was like, this is gonna be one of the first events, and it's gonna be different, and it's gonna be pulling in people from all over to a small town that no one has ever heard of.
Right. So I am super impressed with this campground. The size of the spaces are really big.
And we also have a beautiful river that runs through the campground that people can kayak or canoe or whatever it may be.
It's really gorgeous. Megan, I want to brag on you a little bit. You have been such a gracious host for this event. And this woman put out a s'mores spread like nothing I've ever seen.
Thank God for Pinterest.
It wasn't just marshmallows and Hershey bars and graham crackers. She had cookies. She had
Reese's
peanut butter cups.
Yes, you have to go above and beyond. So even with the rain and a little bit of sunshine, I think it was a really good time.
Well, it was a sweet event. I met this amazing couple, Mike and Christy from New Orleans, who were traveling around in a Nissan van, like a tiny little van. They started off in New Orleans and basically are outlining the coast of the United States. So they went down to Key West, they went up the East Coast, crossed the northern states, which is where I met them in Wisconsin, and they're heading all the way down to the Baja Peninsula and then back to New Orleans, and they're giving themselves a year to do this trip. It was fascinating to me that the two of them could manage this in that tiny little van, and I was also pretty impressed with what they considered a necessity. Had a record player and some albums in the van with them. If you're interested in following them, they have an Instagram called The Traveling Buzz, and I'll put that link in the video description. That's it for today. I'm excited for my next video, which I'll introduce you to Dee from the YouTube channel Lady Bug Out. She's my new friend, and I can't wait for you to meet her. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. You keep watching, and I'll keep posting content.
Oops.
Dang. Apparently, it's a very popular stop on the... Apparently, it's a... And girl, some of this I'm just going to edit out like, okay, that sounds stupid and weird. Which makes it have a bigger weight. And then he had also invited his friends. That's gonna be loud.
Sorry.
That's all good, honey.
Sorry.
Ready? That rooster is cracking me up.